Early game as Zhatan, you lack killing potential. The blunderbuss unit is great, but finicky. The Death Shrieker can do damage over time that looks impressive, but it's more impressive against soft infantry or cavalry units, if you're lucky. Late game you can make cheap hobgoblin armies with the Valerie special building, but even with Gordu's in the house, this is not priced acceptably in the early game. Hobgoblins are good at punishing low armor units, but that's only some of your opposition. Definitely not all. You need to plan ahead for some kind of armor pierce. You have 3 decent options as Zhatan at this stage, and I'm ruling out magic. You have 1 Demon Smith of Fire, treasure him, it'll take a while to get more. Option number 1, more blunderbusses. If you can rush the building, either at your first factory or with 2 outposts and upgrading the Valerie, you can have a total of, say, 3 or even 4. That should do you for quite a while. You have to master how to use them, but they are very powerful. If you have any spare armaments and doubt about victory, slap extra powder on them for 30% more damage during the opening salvos. It makes a difference. Play like Vampire Coast without even being drowned undead. Option number 2. Chaos Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. This makes them much more vulnerable to missiles, which is a big deal against some opponents, like Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, but they still become brutal in melee, especially once you pop Frenzy on them with a Hellforge, which should be the first thing you do with them. Option number 3. Wisely choose War Machines. Now, I think that a combination of blunderbusses and War Machines works quite well, but you're going to want to start using great weapons against armor-happy factions. It's just that Zhatan faces a lot of Cathay, so it's a hard pick for that matchup. Let's talk briefly about War Machines. The Death Shrieker rocket launcher is what I call the king of sieges. It can also snipe dragon-sized targets. It also fires on a really high arc. My earlier video showed the demolition rockets have no minimum range. I have exhausted what I have good to say about this unit. The magma cannon can be extremely frustrating if you are trapped with several in a bad situation. I suggest bringing 1 and attempting to use it against soft targets, where it absolutely excels. You have to make really sure you have a proper sightline, but you're doing that with blunderbusses anyway, and hoping the map gods favor you. The Skullcracker in its current state seems just like the Iron Demon minus the gun, benefiting from red tree buffs in the Bull Centaur section, and also has wall break. This ends the differences from the Iron Demon. The Iron Demon should fire while moving, but I don't think it's working right. That's fine. It's a strong unit if you just bash stuff with it. The starting model is, like most things, nowhere near as amazing as a late game model, but the bottom line is that full speed, these are death to infantry, even braced infantry. But after their ability runs out, they can get bogged down easily. On the other hand, if massed armored infantry are your problem, this is a valid response. The Hell Cannon is middle of the road, solid enough, but 30 armor, so beware. Basically, if you have a Death Shrieker, keep it. If you expect sieges upon cities you can't handle otherwise, Death Shriekers and Skullcrackers will help turn that tide, but that just makes the job easier. That is a small subset of your battles, and hey, you have siege towers and some of the best infantry around. You can probably get a favorable auto-resolve if you have any strategic space at all, but we'll see. For open field battles, it's not that there's a bad option, but I think it's safest to have at least 1 magma cannon for whittling down soft targets, and at least 1 Iron Demon to roll over armored infantry. You want more than that, of course, but as you transition to mid-game as Zhatan, this is what you should be pushing. Any Hell Cannons are icing on the cake, but they're not any better at zeroing down a single target. I guess I must ask, what is? Now, Death Shriekers can do the job, but not fast, and it also really helps if your opponent is the size of a Cygor or bigger. Past that, what you really want is a Demon Smith with Infernal Engineer, and on top of that an Infernal Castellan for even more buffs if possible. You want Kindle Flame on all your fire-based stuff, which includes the Death Shrieker, which excludes the Hell Cannon. The Iron Demon has no flame damage by default. I think it's very hard to justify dipping into Kadai as Zhatan until fairly late, when you can afford Demon Smiths all over the place to help them out. But for your peace of mind, I think you should really make an effort to seize, or even steal, the Fireborn Summon, which can by itself help you take out artillery and or group the opposition for a Dreadquake battery strike. Taking out pesky artillery is one of the biggest annoyances you will face. You need a plan, and while I love for sneaky gets to be it, giant armies can occupy so much space that you can't get in. Plus, Sky Lanterns exist. So be prepared, have some kind of plan. If all else fails, use patience, defense in depth, and wear down your opposition until you can pull off an ambush or otherwise get an advantageous situation. This should carry you to having a shaky but identifiable territory around you, a decent amount of raw materials, armaments that start slowly piling up, and plenty of tough units for one good army. It may take until you get to tier 5 with the Volley, but you really do want that Hobgoblin building up so you can recruit Hobgoblin units cheaply, even through global recruitment. Then it's a matter of seeing what your opponents let you get away with. Be an opportunist. That's all for now. Take care.